Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to the steps of City Hall. It's SONA 2025 and the anticipation is building up. We're hours away from President Cyril Ramaphosa delivering his 2025 SONA speech as well. We're going to bring you updates, we're going to bring you the latest and chat to various politicians and stakeholders with regards to their involvement in not only how our country shapes itself, but how the world sees us as well. I have the privilege and honor of now speaking to from Action SA, Athol Trollip. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon, Lukman. Thanks very much for having me on Hilaal TV. I appreciate the opportunity.
My absolute pleasure. The anticipation is building up. I mean, we do know it's been 7 months that the GNU has been in power, has been in operation, coalition, and we have the Progressive Caucus that has raised various points as well. But let's just go back to the GNU and how it was formed and some of the tasks they were supposed to have been implemented to date. What are your thoughts in terms of how that has unfolded?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the Progressive Caucus. I think Action SA occupies a really important space in South African Parliament. We're a small political party, but we're not aligned either to the GNU or to the Progressive Caucus.
Right.
So we're the biggest political party in Parliament that is in opposition but not aligned. And that's a very critical point, and we undertake to be a constructive opposition.
Great.
So when it comes to the GNU, look, I mean, there was a lot of fanfare. They came into government about 7 months ago, the same time as the UK government. Nothing much has changed in the UK. In fact, people are now really disillusioned with their new government. And not a lot has changed in South Africa with the GNU. There was a lot of fanfare. We've seen there's been a bit of squabbling lately about the Bela Bill and then the expropriation without compensation.
Yes.
And those were supposed to be two red lines for some of the political parties in the GNU. It just ended up being red lipstick because nothing's changed. And nothing was going to change. So let me be fair there, because those two pieces of legislation were passed in Parliament in the last Parliament.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. But tonight is the big night. 7 months into this new government, we will see tonight whether the GNU partners have any real influence in the GNU, because it's the first time that an ANC president is making a State of the Nation address without a majority in Parliament. So if there is any important role of GNU partners, we better see it tonight, otherwise the hope will fade.
Yeah. You brought up the DRC. And sadly, we've lost 14 fallen soldiers, and our prayers goes out to them and their families as well. What are your thoughts in terms of the government's involvement in the DRC?
Well, first of all, my condolences and our condolences to those families as well. Unfortunately, it's not the first operation in Africa where we've lost troops, and our, let's say, combat readiness has been brought into question. We've seen a systematic cuts in budget to the National Defence Force. We've also seen the appointment of Angie Motshekga as the Minister of Defence. No experience whatsoever in defence. In fact, the only experience she has is destroyed education. Now she's been given defence, and look what's happened. The deployment of those troops, I believe, was ill-considered, even though we are in a SADC and United Nations mission, because we were sent there as peacekeeping forces, ostensibly in a war zone. I mean, what's happening in the eastern DRC is intractable. It's been going on for years and years and years, and we were actually caught in hostile, offensive crossfire, and our troops were not capacitated. They didn't have the backup, logistics, ammunition, food, and water even. They're dependent on M23 right now. We don't know whether they're actually being held hostage or whether they're prisoners of war, but they're in a crisis situation. I'm in contact with a parent of one of the lieutenants. Parent says they eat once a day. They are completely dependent on M23. And my concern is that there's also no casualty evacuation plan.
Right.
So we've lost 14 soldiers, but they're all wounded soldiers. There could be more numbers coming back home in body bags, and that's just untenable. So we believe that there must be a reassessment about what's going on there. We're clearly not, we're out of our depth, and our troops are sitting ducks there.
Right. There was talk about tonight's celebration maybe being lessened and probably not as hyped up as previous SONAs as well, in memory of our fallen soldiers.
I don't think that's going to happen. I've seen them practicing on the parade and down the streets. I think what our government will do is try and show that we have a capable defence force. That's certainly what I heard Angie Motshekga saying this week in a portfolio committee, a joint portfolio committee meeting on defence. Mm-hmm. And what I saw there also perturbed me. We have a deputy minister, Bantuolo Misa. He was a general. He sat there, had nothing to say, had no mandate to speak in the meeting. So why have deputy ministers? Yeah. And he looked bemused when there was denialism and defensiveness. So there will be a parade and there will be a charade, I think, to say that we are capable. But the real facts are our troops are dying in foreign countries.
Yeah, we do know that all of this affects the way the international community sees us as South Africa. Yeah. We've now got Donald Trump coming into the mix with regards to land appropriation. What are your views on that?
Okay, well, first of all, we have a very poor international image, and quite deservedly, I think, because in politics, perceptions become reality. And we have aligned ourselves to many pariah nations the world over, and we don't look after our relations with the countries that trade favorably with us. We take them for granted. But I also think that there's a lot of disinformation coming out of the United States. It's that sort of real clickbait kind of politics. The expropriation without compensation legislation, I want to put our position on the table and make it quite clear. Mm-hmm. We have a constitutional dispensation in this country. Mm-hmm. Section 25 of the Constitution is very clear, and we believe deals with redress mm-hmm. and expropriation and dispossession of people, many people in this country. It's there, it's perfectly adequate, it wasn't changed, thanks goodness. There is new legislation that provides for nil compensation. Now, some people are very afraid of that. I think that that's just a smokescreen right. or a defection.
Right.
Because I'll give you two examples. Herman Mashaba was the mayor of Johannesburg, and he expropriated derelict, invaded, hijacked buildings
yes.
for nil compensation. The mayor of Tshwane, Dr. Nasipi Moya, is expropriating derelict, hijacked buildings in Tshwane as we speak for no compensation. I lived in East London for a long time, and there was a piece of land in the middle of East London that belonged to Transnet. Mm-hmm. And Sanral wanted to build a new bypass through the centre of town to deal with congestion. It mm-hmm. took 12 or 14 years mm-hmm. to get that land. 12 or 14 years. So that's where you use the nil compensation. The state doesn't have to buy from itself.
Got it.
Just transfer it for nil compensation.
In closing, what is your message? You know, you're a year old, or Action SA, 7 months or a year old. What is your message to our viewers that are watching this interview?
Look, tonight's actually about the president's message. So what we're saying is we want to hear the president talk about unemployment and our economy. It's not growing. There are 12 million South Africans out of work that want to work, primarily black South Africans. Mm-hmm. Broad-based black economic empowerment has not worked. We want to hear what's different, what's going to be done differently. We want to hear him on lawlessness and the fact that prosecutions are poor in this country. We see no high-profile politicians being prosecuted. He's got 2 cabinet ministers in his cabinet implicated in serious corruption. One was moved sideways and the other he hasn't said a word about, Minister Ntshavheni. We want to hear him talk about local government. Local government has collapsed. Yeah. Most of our municipalities are bankrupt. They don't pay service providers like Eskom and water boards, so we're running out of water in our municipalities, and the Auditor General said that Eskom is in a financial crisis right now.
Right.
So unless the President speaks about those issues, any hope and excitement about the GNU will disappear tonight.
Got it. Mr. Trollip, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to the next couple of months because, as you say, you know, you guys are there to keep government on both sides, Progressive Caucus or GNU, on their toes. And thank you for all the great work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And there we go. From Action SA, Mr. Athol Trollip giving his views on the SONA 2025 speech that the President will be making this evening. Reporting for Hilaal TV, I'm Motshekga.